artist, welcome to another video. Today I will be swatching some of my travel kit which I'm curating for an upcoming trip. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Irit. I'm a watercolor and mixed media artist based in Austria and Europe, and on my channel I share my artsy adventures. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and of course I would love for you to subscribe. Today, as I've said, I'm swatching my kit, my travel kit, which I have been trying to curate for quite some time. I am not a minimalist by any means, and it's a challenge. So I'm going hopefully to the Greek islands, and I want a kit that has a lot of possibilities, but also has a bit of a personality. So not just, you know, all the colors. So this is a little bit sped up, and I'm just trying to see how all the colors that I have together look. Now, ideally, like in my head when I was planning this, I really wanted a color story. I really want this sketchbook that hopefully will depict, you know, the Greek islands, to have a feel to it, an atmosphere. But I think I miserably failed and came up with my go-to of rainbow vomit. And no, I don't think it's that intense this time. But I am struggling to find kind of that balance between I'm very, very color-led and I love using a lot of color. It's one of the things that, or if not the most important thing to me, is the color scheme, the colors in my paintings and sketches. And it's really what decides most of the time if I love something or not, and that something includes my own work and other artists' work. If the colors are right, then I feel like I can get away with a lot of things that are wrong. But if the colors are wrong, then nothing works. That's how it is for me. So here I'm just trying to see all of my markers and pencils. If you want to know a specific color, this video is a little bit too kind of intense, and I don't know, I'm just like, I don't have a lot of time to record this. So I'm just talking in general about my kit. But if you want to know a specific color, then please leave me the timestamp, and I will do in the future a more detailed video on exactly what I took and how I used it, with the color names and everything. But if there's something like urgent that you feel like you really want to know, then leave me a comment and I will do my best to find out what shade of pencil, marker, watercolor, gouache it is for you. So the biggest challenge for me as someone who loves to work in mixed media was to curate a kit that gives me a lot of options but is not too heavy, like literally like actually heavy, and also just too overwhelming. So I want to have choices but not too much choices. But then I also really love to work in different mediums. So I think I'm really jealous sometimes of people who are, I'm not like jealous of them, but I wish I were in love with just like one medium, and that would be enough for me. But I love the combination of textures and colors. And so I have chosen a combination of a few things, and I'll tell you about them. So one thing is markers, and this has been a relatively kind of newer thing for me, but I have found that adding markers to my sketchbook supply arsenal really, really helps me put things down fast, which I didn't feel I could do or manage to do when I was relying on watercolors as kind of my main supply for a sketchbook. Now, this is, of course, everything that I'm saying is what's working for me right now, and I think it heavily depends on the kind of style of sketchbooks that one has. So I'm really now at this mode where I just want to do like a lot, not every page has to be like this finished piece. Some people have like sketchbooks that are, you know, every single page is like a beautiful piece of finished art. I'm not really into that right now. I'm much more into that raw exploration and having like different types of pages in my sketchbook. Some would be like really simple line drawings or thumbnails or very, very basic stuff. And then other pages will have more interest to them, or more layers, or they'll be just like more complex pieces or drawings or sketches. But I really am right now in like that mood where I can go in and, you know, do like a bunch of pages at once. That's not a goal in itself for me, the quantity, but I find it very motivating and really fun to kind of get obsessed with your sketchbook and feel like you want to work in it all the time and sketch a bunch of pages and not really spend like a lot of time on each and every page. So that's where I'm at right now. And having dry mediums like markers, like pencils, like pastels, which I'm swatching now. These are my Caran d'Ache, mostly Neocolor 2. Almost all of them are Neocolor 2 because I did want that flexibility of having a water-soluble pastel, which are the Neocolor 2, if you're not familiar. These are wax pastels by Caran d'Ache. There are two kinds, Neocolor 1, Neocolor 2. Neocolor 1 is water resistant. Neocolor 2 is water soluble. So mostly I have now in my kit the Neocolor 2 because you can activate them with water and kind of use them similarly to, let's say, gouache or something like this. I wouldn't say they're like watercolors, it's a different texture, it's a different medium, but maybe closer to gouache. So I found that using more dry media, which is relatively new for me, as I said, most of my sketchbooks previously were focused on watercolor or mixed media that included watercolor or like acrylic paint or something like this. I haven't done a ton of drawing. It was more painting. So I am really enjoying kind of exploring a bit of a different practice in my sketchbooks. And a part of that is finding supplies that work well for that. But of course, I always need my watercolor palette. And this is actually a watercolor and gouache palette. And what I'm actually swatching now is I think I also included a little palette with some liquid charcoal from Schminke. And you may have seen at like the beginning of the video, there was also a close-up of a cute little, this is like water-soluble, what I'm doing now, it's from Art Graph. It's kind of like water-soluble graphite. So kind of like pencil in cake form, if you will. And I'll probably won't be taking this with me, but it is a really, really fun supply. There's something about it. It kind of absorbs the water in, I don't know what it is, but I really like it, but I don't think I'll be taking it with me. I'm not much of a, color study, like one-tone gray scale studies. Okay, so moving on to a different kind of sketching. What I'm showing you now are different papers. These are from a German store. You can see the name at the bottom. It's Kirschsteckel. And they have like their own line of paper, which I am like really, really impressed with. I don't know who does the paper for them. I should probably ask Google because I'm pretty sure they don't have their own paper factory. So I'm sure it's, a well-known brand of paper. But you can see there are 5 types of paper. And actually my favorite are the lighter sketching and drawing papers that they have. The watercolor paper, I'm not too crazy about it just because of the texture. I don't think the paper in itself is bad. It's okay. I just really don't like the texture. It's a bit too textured for me and in a way that looks very machine made. So I'm not a fan of that. And then also those like craft sketching papers. I think those are great, you know, if you work with pastels or charcoal or something like this, but yeah, they're just not really my cup of tea. But then there are 3 other types of sketching papers in 3 different weights that are slightly textured. They're not completely smooth, and I just love them. They seem to handle everything, including wet media. Of course, these are not like watercolor papers, but they take watercolor and gouache pretty well. I'm really impressed with them, and you can find these. I know, like, I'm sorry to talk so much about something that probably most of you can't get, but I know some of you are in Europe, and maybe we can do some digging and find out who makes the paper for them. And, you know, maybe you can get it under a different brand name. So what I'm doing with these, they just sold this kit of like all these 5 papers, you know, if you want to try them. So these are like tiny, like not blocks, paper pads. And I think they're really cute. And what I created was this little booklet from it. So I just, you know, took a bunch of papers and like folded them in the middle. And now I'm going to bring my stapler and add a couple of staples. What are these called? But staple it. I'm going to staple it. And then I'm going to have a little booklet. And what I'm going to do with it is, well, with this one, I don't know if maybe I gave this to my daughter, or maybe she wanted, like, she saw me doing this and immediately wanted her own. So that's always a sign of something inviting when, you know, your kids immediately are interested. So she appeared. And now I was trying to kind of cut the pages so the edge is straight and they're not sticking out, but I chose like the stupidest tool to do that, and everything became very crooked. And yeah, so don't do what I do. Take like a normal you know, knife and be careful. And yeah, if you are using scissors, then, you know, make sure you know how to use scissors and you're not making a huge mess like I did. So I completely messed it up and made it really ugly, and it was very unnecessary. It was probably better to leave it alone as it was. But yeah, that's me. Like, I mess things up. So there I have my little booklet. There I have the hands of a child. So and Lily immediately wanted her own little booklet, so we did that. And the goal is that I will have this cute little thing to swatch my supplies and kind of keep it with all of the supplies. So I have a handy little booklet to see the colors. I don't know how necessary it is, because I'm also planning to do this in my chosen sketchbook, which I'm taking with me, which I still haven't chosen, and I don't want to talk about it. It's too stressful. But actually, now that I'm thinking, maybe it's not a bad idea, because, you know, if I'm working on a page or a couple of pages, then maybe I don't want to like flip back to the swatch pages. So maybe it will be very handy to have this little booklet with all the colors. So I'm going to swatch my watercolor and gouache palette, and then I'm going to swatch like all the other supplies and keep it in this little booklet and keep that in my kit. I decided to mix both watercolors and gouache because I feel like I'm really enjoying the kind of intensity and opacity of gouache right now. And so I decided to combine them. I think actually this palette is mostly gouache. And then with a few colors that I really wanted to have in general and specifically in watercolor, I added some of those Daniel Smith watercolor sticks, which you can see at the top of the screen. So I had a little bit of a dilemma if I should cut them or like break them and take smaller chunks instead of the whole stick, because I do enjoy also using it kind of as a pastel, not just as watercolor. So like directly sketching with it. But I found that this, with this size, this is not like too tiny for me to still be able to do that. And it would cut on like it would help me fit these in a smaller space. So it was hard because I don't know, I think they look nicer when they are in their full size. But I decided this would be a better idea. Now, I think these are great. I have to say the opera pink one that I have is kind of slightly drier than the other sticks, and I do find it a bit harder to kind of activate it, and I don't feel I get a ton of intensity, at least not in the level that I easily get from the other sticks, which are re-wetted and reconstituted really, really beautifully. I think it's a very lovely supply and a really good choice also for travel, because they are dry but still activated really, really fast. So this will be kind of the cover of this little booklet that I'm going to take with me, and I think it just looks super cute and very inviting and reminds me of all the colors that I have. As you can see, like some of the colors that I have cracked, this is quite common with gouache, and there are ways around it. I think you can add a little bit of like gum arabic and like mix it into the paint, and then you won't have this. I couldn't be bothered because I'm a very lazy person. So these are how mine are looking. I did kind of top them off, like I filled them first and then I added like another layer, so maybe that helps to avoid some of the cracking. And my experience with gouache, and a lot of these are, not a lot, but some of these are Daniel Smith, and then the rest are Winsor & Newton, and then there are like a couple of Holbein, is that if you use them often, they are okay. They won't crumble and fall out of the palette. But in time they will. That has been my experience. That at some point, like in my situation, it was months, including sometimes where I wasn't using the palette, that the gouache paints did dry to a level that I find working with them is just not fun anymore and not as effective, and you get a lot of crumbling. This happens to me across brands, so I just think it's the nature of the paint. Formula wise, my favorite is the Daniel Smith one. I think it is the most kind of creamy and beautiful and activates super fast, even if you don't use it fresh from the tube, which is, I would say it's probably most gouache artists work with freshly squeezed gouache paint, and then the minority, at least from what I've seen, the minority use dried gouache paint. I prefer to use the dry one. It's just like the whole process of squeezing it out. It's just it's like another step that for me complicates things, so I prefer the dried version, but I definitely don't think that is the best way to use that specific material. Of course, in this case, when I want a travel palette, it really does make sense. I don't want to carry a bunch of tubes with me, but in general, with gouache, I would probably recommend to use it freshly squeezed. So here are the markers again, and what I'm trying to do also in this little booklet are these like mini color stories, which I think can be really helpful in creating a mood. And again, since we're going to a specific place where we'll be spending some days there, I really want the sketches and the sketchbook to have a certain mood to it. So I'm trying to find different limited color palettes, color stories that I think would look good for this subject, which are, the Greek islands. So I'm trying to do that also with my pencils, and I'm trying to do that with my markers, and I'll probably do that again in my sketchbook, just, to warm things, like get warmed up and see how things work. But I think this is like a great concept, and hopefully it will help me make more cohesive sketches and just make the whole look of the sketchbook more atmospherical or just more unique. So I hope you enjoyed this swatching video. Oh, actually, what I wanted to say, and of course completely forgot, is to invite you to the Joy Art Club. Next month, we will be doing a sketchbook challenge. We're going to start a sketchbook. We're going to fill it. We're going to finish it. We're going to do all of that together. There's going to be tons of fun videos and prompts and ideas and inspiration, and I invite you to join. So more details on that coming soon. Take care. Bye-bye.